Hi, welcome to a special edition of the Reins on the Cardinals podcast. We're spending this week coming up to the trading deadline on Thursday with a special daily show about kind of what we're hearing here at the STL Sports Page News Desk. And Mike Raines joins us as well with some developments of the day. Mike, how are you?
I'm good.
Couple things to get out of the way. First, of course, the Cardinals have made a trade. Breaking news. But it wasn't necessarily the trade that we all wanted to see. But I am kind of surprised, actually. Eric Fetty to the Braves.
It's a great trade because if you think about it, we were letting him go. So now the fact that we get something for it is huge, right? Whether it's a player to be named later or cash is how it was written. But it's a great deal that somebody was willing to give us something for him.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, of course, of placing a player, designating him for assignment as opposed to just outright releasing him. So you do have that window of time if somebody does have an interest before he would clear waivers, and then he's free to go to anybody for the minimum salary. So the Cardinals are going to get some financial relief out of this deal, and that's a good thing. So now the question becomes, who's the next guy on the trading list? And a couple of developments of the day on Monday to get to, not specifically because they involve players on the Cardinal roster at the moment, but it does impact that. The first is a report out of Cleveland that Emmanuel Clase is now part of the subject of the investigation that we already knew was going on into the Guardians. There was some gambling situations, and actually one of the games involved a game against the Cardinals. So he is placed on the involuntary suspended list or something like that, which basically kills his trade value between now and the end of the trading deadline. He was one of the guys that was expected to go, and we all know several clubs are looking for closers. So that automatically, I think, would elevate the asking price for Ryan Helsley, because I think he's now more of an available target with Clase off the market.
It does for sure, and I think Helsley is the guy that we've talked about the longest that is going to get dealt. It's just a matter of where it's going to be. Anyone that knows Mo knows that he's going to wait for the best possible deal. So it may be a little bit, but he's probably going to go somewhere. And the asking price just got better for us now.
And I think there's 4 teams still that you can kind of look at. If I was a betting person to kind of take odds as far as where he's going to end up, I think there's 4 clubs. The Yankees, number 1, and these are not in any particular order. Yankees, Phillies, Dodgers, and Toronto, to me. And I guess you could put Detroit in there maybe a little bit too, although they did make a trade for a pitcher on Monday, getting Chris Paddock from the Twins. Another minor trade on Tuesday. Danny Jansen goes from the Rays to the Milwaukee Brewers. And it looks like as we started to tape this report, Marlins are trading catcher Nick Fortes to Tampa Bay. And actually, he was on the field at Busch Stadium when they informed him that he was being traded. So are we officially in hug watch time, Mike, now?
I think we probably are. And another note that I saw on Helsley, I also saw something that said the Athletics weren't interested in him because, they're an interesting team because they're right there in the hunt. They're playing well. That smaller ballpark in Sacramento's playing for them. So I think there's probably going to be more teams in on Helsley than we think. I think the big 4 that you mentioned are probably the ones that are most likely, but it's not to say that the surprise team couldn't come out with the best offer because they want to try to some of these other teams.
And, of course, it is a rental just for the rest of the season, since Helsley is a free agent after this season, and that would be, probably obviously impact whatever the Cardinals were to get in return. We know they're looking for young, controllable arms, and part of the reason they're looking for young, controllable arms is also some unfortunate news that we learned on Monday. Katie Wood, The Athletic, reported first that Takola Roby, the Cardinals probably one of the top 2 or 3 pitching prospects in the organization, has undergone Tommy John surgery. A very unfortunate situation. Takola's battled injuries the last couple of years, didn't pitch very, very much at all since he was traded from Texas a couple of years ago at the deadline, but it was pitching well this year. Got promoted from AA to AAA, and then unfortunately this injury has happened. Don't know any real details yet about it, but he was a guy that I think you talked about maybe being in the rotation at the end of the season, or at least certainly being a candidate to be in the rotation in 2026. Now you got another spot that you're going to need to fill.
And he's probably a guy that could have filled, one of the roles of the relievers that were probably going to get shipped out here. So definitely some unfortunate news. And starting pitching at the high AAA, borderline starting major league pitching is right where we need guys in this trade.
Unfortunately, it's a trend here now. Cooper Jerpy already undergone Tommy John surgery earlier this year, so you're losing a lot of your top pitching prospects to that injury, and that means he'll miss, all of, if not almost all, of next season. The other news from the ballpark on Monday is Nolan Aronado was not in the Cardinal lineup for the Miami Marlins opener. You can speculate all you want about why he's not in the lineup. Is basically probably because he needs a day off. He's not had a very good month of July, hitting just, 165, 163 so far in July with only 2 RBIs in his 55 plate appearances this month. That's not helping his trade value.
It would not surprise me one bit, though, if he does get traded, right? I think that's the one move that Mo has wanted to make the entire time. So this is kind of his shot again before he steps off at the end of the year as, hey, I wanted to trade him to do this reset. Well, he wasn't able to then, so I bet he finds a way to get it done this deadline. Because
that'll be interesting to see.
The question mark is going to be Eugenio Suarez, right? Kind of like Alex Bregman was in the offseason. The ask for Arenado is not going to be as high as Eugenio Suarez is, I would assume, or at least not the perceived value. Who knows what Mo is actually asking for. But, I think when you look at this trade deadline, there's got to be something in it for the fans if you want them to support this team. Trading Arenado, I think fans are okay with. You trade Brendan Donovan and Alec Burleson, you're going to upset a lot of people.
You're probably right. But I think the two problems, though, with the Arenado trade is, number one, we don't know how much of the contract, the 2 years left on that contract, was at $42 million for 26 and 27 that the Cardinals will be willing to pay. And you also don't know, there hasn't been any indication yet or any reports that Arenado has softened his stance about only wanting to go to a very limited amount of clubs. And you don't know that any of those clubs are the ones that need a third baseman or have an interest in him.
There are a few out there, I think, that probably do. And maybe, I'm sure Mo is sitting down and talking with everybody this week. I saw that he sat down and talked with Sonny Gray, and Sonny said that he would prefer to stay in St. Louis if possible, right? So I don't know what Arenado has said. That hasn't come out at all yet, but I'm sure he's having that conversation with him. But if you truly want this reset to be a thing for this year, he kind of changes a lot of those plans, right? Because you need to try to find a way to get other guys in the lineup, in Gorman when he comes back from his rehab, Nootbaar when he comes back from his rehab, Sajaci. You got to find a way to get the young guys in there.
Kind of what we said in February and March as well, that never happened. The problem is, too, though, again, in addition to, we don't know who Arenado would agree to go to, but there's 7 clubs. What the speculation that I've seen come through on the media reports today is you can identify 7 clubs that's kind of in the market for a third baseman, again, in no particular order. But 3 of them are in the National League Central: Milwaukee, the Cubs, and the Reds. I really highly doubt that the Cardinals want to trade Nolan Aronado to somebody within the division. Then you have Philadelphia, Seattle, Detroit, and Houston. Well, we know Houston's not interested right now because they all had all that mess with them back in December of last year. And so I think they've turned the page. The Yankees have already made a move for their third baseman, a guy Ryan McMahon. So you're looking at Philadelphia, Seattle, and Detroit. That's the 3 I think that makes the most sense if Arenado is going to get traded.
The other team that wouldn't surprise me, though, because they do a lot of everything, is the Dodgers still. I'm going to leave them on the list, too, even though they don't necessarily need a third baseman. They're the type of team that wouldn't surprise me because they've spent all this money. They need to go out there and win, and they need to do something, and it's not working. So is that the type of fit? I don't know, right? But I think that the challenge is the National League Central teams, right? If there ever was a time to trade a player in the National League Central, if this is the year you don't think you're going to win and you're trying to reset, this is the year to do it.
Yeah, but you're giving them to that club for 2 more years, not just a rental for the rest of the season.
I don't disagree, but look at how he's hitting. He's hitting 235 this year.
Maybe you want to play in third base of the Cubs. Is that what you're saying?
Is there any indication it's going to get better?
Unfortunately, that's the problem. That's the problem.
The right direction. So are you? If you don't necessarily want him in your lineup here, are you afraid of him in the lineup again for the Brewers or the Cubs? I'm not.
It's going to be interesting. So, well, we will keep you updated. Everything that we hear coming up through the STL Sports Page news desk, either in the story on the website or else in a special edition of our Trading Deadline show. Trading Deadline, 5 p.m. St. Louis time on Thursday. We'll be watching it all for you here on STLSportsPage.com. Mike, thank you.